What's going on, guys? So today I'm talking about how to sharpen and maintain your paper cutter. This is an X-Acto brand paper cutter. These aren't terribly common for home use, although pretty much everyone remembers these at school. Everyone was very fearful you get a cut your finger off if you don't use this thing properly. But it's actually a very useful tool. I think households where you have people who are very crafty, if you like doing craft projects, this is kind of a must-have. It's a great tool to have, but you know, maybe not super common in everyone's home. But anyway, today we're going to be stropping up the blade here, but it's the same process if you're actually going to be sharpening it. All right, so if you happen to have one of these tools and you don't know how to sharpen these, that's why I'm making this video, to tell you how. All right, so the first thing we're going to have to do is obviously take it apart to access just those blades. All right, so again, this specific model is an X-Acto brand model. All right, on the back here we have two nuts. These are 14 millimeter. That's why you guys saw that I have a wrench here. All right, there's a little washer underneath, and you have to be careful because there is a spring in here, which I'll show you as soon as I take this apart. All right, so I loosened up this nut here. You take that off. Put that aside. Make sure you want to save all your parts. The second one here, you can take off. Now, as I'm doing this, I don't know if you could tell, this arm is pushing out because of that spring. All right, so if you push this in, right, it's going to make it easier to take that off. And there's a little washer there, which I'm going to slowly let push out. Okay. And there we go. So, I put that off to the side. You can see again, there is a spring here. Okay. And this little arm on both sides actually fit into holes. They're on both the body as well as the arm here. All right, so putting this back together can be a little bit tricky, but I'll show you that later. So if you look at the base here, there's a blade that's attached to the side, as well as obviously the arm. These work in unison together to make your cuts. All right, so both of these have 3 Phillips head screws. Again, your model might be different, unless you have the exact one that I'm working on here. So I'm just gonna take all these screws out so I can separate the blades from the tools. So the blade for the base here, all right, is completely flat. So we have a flat edge, all right. This one happens to have a strip screw. Normally, I would just take this off and it's a little bit easier to have it separate from the base. But in this case, what I want to do is maintain this flat edge. This happens to be dirty, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a folded paper towel, take a little bit of that metal polish. This is Flitz brand. Of course, any metal polish will work. Just tiny dab will do you. All right, put the cap back on, put that off to the side. And I'm going to run this down the length of this blade. All right, so basically just polishing down, taking off some of this dirt and stuff that's on top here, but also polishing that metal. All right, so again, it stays a flat angle, or flat edge here. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure you stay on this edge. You don't want to slip off, okay? Because what's actually cutting, this is a totally right edge. It works very similar to how an ice skate works. So the sharp edge is actually the corner. All right, so you don't want to slide off the corner. So you can see all that black is the metal that's being polished up. All right, so I'm running this across the top edge. Then I'm going to turn it. I'm going to rub against this flat edge here, okay? So by doing this, I'm basically just polishing up one side and then polishing up the other side to make that very corner right over here just a little bit cleaner and finer. All right, so now moving on to this blade here. This happens to be dirty, all right, so I'm just gonna take some rubbing alcohol. This is just 70%. 90% would work probably even better. And I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit before we do some sharpening, just to get rid of some of this crud. All right, so that's cleaned up a little bit here. Then what I wanna do is take some of this Flitz metal polish. All right, you can use compound on your strops. I happen to just like this because it's very fine as well. And you want to kind of evenly spread that amongst the strop. Now, if you don't have a strop, again, if you're doing any kind of sharpening, you do this exact same process but with sharpening stones. You just want to make sure you get the same angle as our cutting edge. But in this case, I'm stropping it to maintain it. So basically what I'm doing is I'm really, really finely sharpening it. That's it. There's a very, very fine grit that's in this metal polish. That's what polishes the metal. All right, so it's like, very fine sandpaper in a liquid form. That's one way to look at it. Now, all you want to do is you want to match up with the angle that's on this flat edge. Now, at first glance, this looks like it's completely flat, kind of like the blade that's on the base, but it's not. This actually has a very slight angle. All right, so to see that, you can look at it from the ends. There you go, that's in focus. Hopefully you guys can see that. It's not actually completely flat when you look at the end here. It's actually on a very, very slight incline. All right, so you want to do is you want to match that up to the surface of your strop, or in the case of using a sharpening stone, to sharpen it. All right, so looking at it again, you can see the angle is this way. So you get a firm grip on your blade. All right, we're going to start on one end, very light pressure, and just drag it along as if you're stropping any other blade. You just have to make sure the entire time you're doing this, you're at the same angle as this blade. Otherwise, you're just rounding off the edges. All right, so again, this is not completely flat against this strop. It's slightly angled to match that edge. All right, now you kind of get a feel for this when you do a lot of stropping. You can feel where that flat edge is. And after I do a few passes holding it on the end here, I'm going to go ahead and move my hand up a little so that there's a little bit more pressure or stability towards the middle. All right, and then of course keep moving my arm up or my hand up. So as I'm doing this, I'm putting more pressure on each, part of this blade edge. In other words, if I hold it down here the whole time, I might be putting all the pressure here, and then this side is barely touching, whereas this is touching more. So you just want to kind of go back and forth and make sure, the entire edge is being pushed against that strop. But again, not with a lot of pressure. Just very lightly making these passes. Now, even though I prefer to do it this way, an easier way that some people might find is if you have a stiff strop like this. All right, and even if you don't have these dedicated tools, you can get, a piece of raw leather, attach it to a block of wood or something. All right, you just want to make sure you have either a compound on here or, that metal polish. All right, and then hold the blade stiff. All right, or you can put this in a vise if you want to. Just make sure, again, we're not holding it totally straight. We're holding it on a little bit of an angle to match that edge. And then instead of, moving the blade across the strop, you're moving the strop across the blade. In this case, you can do little circles if you want to. All right. And all we're doing is polishing up that entire edge. All right. Or, you can do long strokes if that's easier. The small circle seems to just, get the job done faster. But that's just a different method you can use to get the same result. So again, all we're trying to accomplish here is to polish out this straight edge, okay? You just want to match the same angle. That's it. By doing this, by making this nice and flat again, we're making those both edges very, very sharp. All right, so our blade is sharpened here. You want to put it back on the arm here the proper way, because you can't put it on backwards. So you can see as far as the arm, obviously we have the outside, which is smooth, the inside, which has this little grid pattern. You want to make sure that the blade angle kind of matches this angle. So, in other words, looking at the blade on the edge, it's angled like this, okay? So you want this to go on just like this because the angle matches with the slight angle on the outside, all right? Hopefully that makes sense. So hold that in place, line up the holes, obviously, put the screws back in, and tighten this down. I'll show you how to put it back on the base here. So let's get the body back over here. All right, so first thing we're gonna do is put this spring back. You can see there's a hole. Let me zoom in here. That hole right in the middle of the screen there is where this protruding piece goes. All right, so put it around here. Put that piece inside the hole. All right, just like that. Then you're putting this through here. You want to make sure that the other spring goes through that hole there. Okay, this piece here into that hole there, but it basically just keeps the spring in place so it's not rotating. So you want it to look just like this, where the one end of the spring is put through the hole in the arm and the other one's going to protrude through the back here. Now it's hard to show on camera here because I actually have to rotate the arm, but you can see this little piece here, okay, this little section, there's a slot that goes through, okay? So that's what allows the arm to only go a certain amount up and only a certain amount down. So just make sure that goes in through here. If it's not lined up or anything, it's not gonna, fit flush. All right, so at this point, I'm just gonna reassemble it, Put on our washer. All right, take one of our nuts here. Make sure to get that on properly. And I'm holding this together. You can see my thumb. I'm really squeezing this together because I'm tensioning that spring. Once you push this all the way down, you can let go. All right. Make sure it's nice and snug. There we go. All right, so now I don't have to obviously hold it anymore because it has its own tension. Then you put the other nut on. All right, that just keeps it from backing out. And there you go. All right, so now that we're all done, we just want to make sure it functions properly. If you haven't used these before, you push out a little because there's that little nub that keeps it in, all right, so you can't lift it. So you push out, all right, going up, it stops there, all right, so it only allows you to lift it so much, and obviously, there's your cutting action. All right, so if this is too tight, the actual arm, and you want it to be looser, you can just loosen those nuts a little bit, but I have it nice and snug, so it kind of keeps position here, all right, makes it a little bit safer. Then we go ahead and, you know, try to cut something. All right, so I got a piece of paper here, all right, line up on top. A nice clean cut. All right, so I got a bunch of strips here. I want to see if this is going to cut something, you know, thicker, but I don't want to, you know, waste a stack of paper. There you go. Nice clean cut. Seems to work great. All right, so just in case this whole thing was complicated because it was kind of choppy how I filmed it, I just want to show you real quick, you know, the sum of everything you just saw basically. So we have two blades. The base blade is like this with a completely flat edge. All you want to do is sharpen this flat edge flat. That's it. By creating a flat edge here, right there is where the sharp part is, right on the very corner. Okay, the top blade is almost flat but has a slight angle. All right, all you want to do is sharpen that edge flat. So that's it. The bottom is completely flat. This is slightly angled but flat as well. And there's the sharp angle, again, the corner. So when these both come down, right where they meet is where it's actually cutting the piece of paper that's going through. So it's really that simple, just two flat ends. You can sharpen it. In this case, in this video, I wasn't actually sharpening, I was stropping, which might have made things a little bit more confusing for people who aren't into sharpening, you know, in general. But again, stropping is basically like really, really fine sharpening. Just because this wasn't dull, I just wanted to maintain that edge. Anyway, hopefully the video was informational. If you happen to have one of these, you know, paper cutters, now you know how to maintain it and sharpen it. The easiest thing, obviously, you can see the blades are removable. You can always order new blades if you don't want to go through this process. But just because these are non-traditional, you know, angles on blades, they're very easy to sharpen and maintain. You know, this goes for anything with an edge. You know, I have a video on how to sharpen scissors. It's literally the same concept. It's just slightly different angles here. So anyway, that's it for now. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow with a brand new video. Take care.